This video presentation explains how component dimensions and user preferences work together. The FPX file only contains component dimensions. If we open up an average part, you can see on the panel the component dimensions. And that's the only pertinent thing in the FPX file that's used to actually build the footprint. If we turn off some layers, you can see here that the component dimensions in the panel derived the component package body outline, the terminal lead width and length, and the thermopad. This is the basis for starting the calculation of the footprint. If you turn on the top layer, you can see that the pads are placed by your rules, by your preference rules. You define the toe and the heel and the side. You define the solder mask. If we have solder mask swell and preferences, by the way, these preferences over in the panel here are primarily used by light users. The professional users will use the preferences, the main preferences that are applied to all parts. Now if I turn on the solder mask layer here, you can see the solder mask swell and the pads in the preferences. And whatever solder mask swell that the user defines, that'll be applied to all parts. In the rules, you have rules for minimum pad to pad, but these rules are applied to every density level, whether it's least, nominal, or most. This is your global overall minimum pad to pad. In the drafting rules, you have silkscreen legend. So if I turn on the silkscreen layer, we'll turn on the assembly layer, we'll turn on the silkscreen layer, and if I wanted to test the legend, I would type in like a number, a value that I'm going to test here, a 0.2 millimeters, and see that my legend is properly assigned to the right volume of ink that I want to put on my board. I can go to the assembly outline and change the assembly line width and map it to whatever I want to map it to, the minimum body, the minimum, the maximum, nominal. And I can go to the courtyard, and we'll turn the courtyard back on again. And let's say that I don't want a contoured courtyard. So we would say contour courtyard off, and we get a rectangular courtyard. Okay, if I didn't want a courtyard at all, let's say that include courtyard, I don't want one, get rid of it completely. Okay, because if I'm using 3D modeling, my 3D models will be my guide for part-to-part collisions, and the courtyard kind of disappears in the 3D model world. We'll go ahead and turn those back on again. The user can elect to take the component outline and the component terminals and output them to the CAD tool on a user-defined mechanical layer. The user has the ability to check the settings and say that, well, I don't want a rounded corner pad. I want a D-shaped pad. Or I want an oblong pad. The component dimensional data is shown graphically in the display window. And once the package dimensions are entered into the panel, the user can see the component body outline and terminal width. And all the other features are in the library preferences. So it's the preferences, it's the user preferences. And by the way, there's over 1,000 different user preferences that you can define. So you decide what the pad shape, what the toe and the heel and the side. You can use IPC settings, but let's say that if you have a manufacturer that provides really reputable footprint data, you'd want to select the footprint tab and say use manufacturer's dimensions and enter their data. And then that data is saved into the FPX file. So The FPX file does save the component dimensions, but it also saves three other things. It saves the manufacturer's recommended dimensions if you so to use them. It saves the 3D model colors if you want to change the color of the part. The FPX file will store that information too. And the FPX file will save local fiducials if you decide to put local fiducials in your library part. And so there is the explanation of how the component dimensions and the user preference rules work together in harmony to auto-generate your footprints in a repeatable fashion so that every part you build is the same highest quality that meets your user preference rules.